To me, the most important story of all is the attempt by George Soros, with his billions of dollars, to influence the outcome of the next presidential election. But he's doing it legally. It's not an illegal attempt. He's using the power of radio. It was announced earlier today that George Soros has become the largest owner of stock in the second largest radio conglomerate in the nation. That is Audacity, 220 stations, English-speaking stations across the nation, but of special significance here in the New York area are all new stations, 1010 Wins, WCBS AM, although they have FM affiliates. And this is true all across the nation. And a lot of people are getting bent out of shape. Wait a second. We had a warning of this a year ago when he began this venture. He bought up 18 radio stations down in Florida, mostly conservative talk radio stations, Spanish-speaking stations, the big one being Radio Mabi. And people went crazy. He established his Latino media network, and that was acknowledged that was tried to influence the ever-growing Latino vote, the minority today that may soon be the majority, not just in Florida, but America. So to me, that is extraordinarily important because people don't seem to understand it's not just owning radio stations. There's a reason for this. But first, with this major purchase by George Soros, Nancy, give us analysis of what transpired and why this guy now can control a media operation by the short hairs and determine what direction he goes.
Well, so the company, I think it's pronounced Odyssey, and their Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing, so they submitted it to the court. It still needs to be approved, but what happened was Soros Fund Management, they came in, for $400 million, they purchased 40% of the senior debt. And the way that this bankruptcy is set up, the high-ranking creditors, like Soros, they're going to be repaid in stock of the restructured company. Smaller ones will be smaller shareholders are taken out, but he's effectively getting control of the 220 stations because by being the largest shareholder, you control the entire sort of flow of whatever is going on there. So to have 220 stations where he's going to be in control of potentially by the end of March, once this is finalized, that's a lot of power to be wielding on the airs.
The end of March, you mean when the first trial against Donald Trump takes place, when they pick the jury, March 25th, not far from his own property at 40 Wall Street, the Trump building. Wow, this is all very synergistic.
No, and again, so 40%, that's going to make him probably the single largest shareholder. That means he will dictate how the company is run, what's being played on the different stations. I mean, he will, like I said, 220 stations. That is some reach.
So give us an idea based on what you've seen in the past, a scene that may reflect what he is going to do to the existing board of directors and to the management at these stations.
Oh, this is great. It definitely reminded me of Michael Douglas in Wall Street. He's playing the Gordon Gekko character, where this is what he does. And he buys companies when they're weak, and he gets a controlling share, and then he basically just maneuvers the company the way he wants it.
Today, management has no stake in the company. Altogether, these men sitting up here own less than 3% of the company. And where does Mr. Cromwell put his $1 million salary? Not in Teldar stock, he owns less than 1%. You own the company. That's right. You, the stockholder, and you are all being royally screwed over by these bureaucrats.
Well, so there's no doubt whether it's Soros himself or a surrogate, or maybe even his son Alex, who's in the news today, having a relationship with Huma Abedin, the former wife of Anthony Weiner. I mean, this all comes full circle. I could easily see where George Soros or his surrogate goes before the board of directors, goes before all the managers and the ones who basically set the operation of the radio stations. This is the way it's going to be if you want to stay.
Yeah, because this is how you would explain it to the shareholders. You're telling them the current pathway of what the management is doing for you is making it where your stocks aren't going to be producing anyway. This company is going to bankruptcy. You're going to lose everything. You're going to get pennies on the dollar. So if you do this restructuring plan, there'll be a set payout for you. So he will have the power to convince them as the big issue. Because again, he's investing himself in there. So that means he does have a stake in the company.
Now, what's the bottom line in all of this? He's going to lose money. There are other radio conglomerates that are losing money that are just about on the verge of bankruptcy. Our own Chad Lopez, president of Red Apple Media, our parent company, has told us that because he worked originally over at WINS for what is now called Audacity. Might as well be called the Soros Radio Network because that's what it's going to be. That there are many, many radio conglomerates that are on the verge of bankruptcy and are ripe for the picking. The reason that Soros would invest billions in this, he's not going to make money at this. He's not going to make money with the 18 stations of Spanish-speaking radio in Florida called the Latino Media Network. That'll grow. He's not going to make money with the 220 stations of Audacity. He's going to lose money. But he has done the analytics. His left-wing, socialist, democratic-leaning team, they've done the analytics that I did a long time ago that radio, news, talk radio, talk radio, the listeners vote in greater numbers than all others because they're actively engaged. People who listen to music, people who listen to FM if it's not talk or news, they tend to be disassociated, many of them apolitical, or they'll vote in a presidential election, but they're not really motivated. What George Soros has realized is that the way to reach people with the most intimate form of communication is not with television. It's not with newspapers, not with magazines. It's with radio because you're captive when you're in your car. You're captive. You're listening. There are no pictures. You're forced to think. You're forced to observe. This was tried once before when you had a radio conglomerate that was put together, Air America. They tried to put liberal progressive programming out in America. They had about 70 stations. Rachel Maddow was on it, Chuck D. They had a lot of names. It didn't work because it wasn't entertaining. It didn't have the advertising, so it failed. But with George Soros, there'll be no failures because even if the station doesn't make money, it's not there to make money. It's there to be an outlet. Now, who goes up against George Soros, the billionaire? Our own John Catsimatidis, the billionaire, who rescued this thing of ours so precious to all of us, WABC. I've told the story many, many times. We were on the scrap heap. We were owned by Cumulus. They wanted to get out of New York City in the worst way. How would you want to get out of the number one market in America? They got rid of their station Nash, Country Western. They got rid of the iconic station WPLJ, which gone. And they had us on the chopping block. And we were just about ready to be executed when all of a sudden John Catsimatidis called the board, said, stay the execution. Let's negotiate a price. I grew up with WABC radio. I listen to WABC radio. I want to buy WABC radio. Thank God. It was close to the execution date. John Catsimatidis also realizes that radio news, radio talk is the most intimate form of communication out there, and that the people who tend to listen to our means of communication are most engaged, are most likely to vote, are most likely to activate others. So you got one man standing now between George Soros gobbling up all these stations and controlling the nation's radio, which would naturally influence people to the left, to the progressive, to the socialist menu of options. And I know I've had the discussions with John. He also knows there are a lot of station blocks that are on that brink of bankruptcy. And I have a feeling you're going to see John move to purchase them to save America. Not so much as an investment to make money, to save America. Remember, we may hate George Soros. We may not like what he's doing. District attorneys everywhere helping candidates who are for no cash bail, pro-crime, anti-cop. But he knows what he's doing. This is a plan. And there's only one man out there at this point that has the means to stop him. And that's John Catsimatidis, who saved this station. And I'm sure he's going to go to war against George Soros. So this is the battle of the billionaires. George Soros represents socialism, anti-Americanism. John Catsimatidis represents truth, justice, the American way, and capitalism. Let the battle begin. We are in the front vanguard. We here at WABC, and hopefully others will follow.